Yes, you read that title right. Octopath Traveler is the best ongoing JRPG series right now. I'm sticking my flag in the ground and standing by this. Its quality has remained so consistently high since the original game launched in 2018. Its innovative HD 2D art style has inspired countless other games. Its dynamic turn-based combat system might be my favorite in any JRPG, and they release regularly enough without you missing them too much. I crowned Octopath Traveler 2 my game of the year for 2023, and Octopath Traveler 0 is easily going to make my top 3 games of this year. Simply put, the series rocks, and in this video I'm going to tell you why you need to be playing it if you haven't already. And special thanks to Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description or pinned comment below to start playing on iOS or Android for free today. Now, to begin, we have to talk about that gorgeous HD 2D art style. It's one of the coolest, freshest visual styles I've seen in a really long time. It combines both HD pixel art characters with 3D background environments. And what's cool is they mesh together so seamlessly. You think it might not work, but it just does. And I remember seeing this on the very first trailer for when they announced Octopath Traveler and just being completely blown away because I had never really seen a game like that before. It was sort of like a diorama coming to life that you could play, and in fact, I believe that first collector's edition for that first game was literally a diorama that you can kind of put together. And Square Enix has evolved this look not only in the series itself, but with other franchises like Star Ocean, Dragon Quest, and the remake for Live Alive. And of course, it's inspired countless other games that I don't have the time to list off here because there's so many of them. And each entry just levels up in some way, whether it be more details, effects, or camera movements. I remember the leap from 1 to 2 being absolutely massive, and Octopath Traveler 0 looks pretty great as well. And I'm always so shocked at how expressive they managed to make the characters feel. It's subtle but powerful design in the animations. And I think it also really goes down to the character designs and being able to just express however they feel, whether it be through subtle movements or subtle animations with their eyes. These games just managed to make the stories and characters feel so powerful and real, which I'll dive into a little bit later. And I challenge you to come up with another franchise in the last 7 or so years that has brought something this fresh to the table with their visual style. I'm struggling to think with one that competes with Octopath Traveler. And for a mobile title, Champions of the Continent manages to capture that same charming art style beautifully. It looks and runs fantastic, it has that same stylized UI, and it feels almost unbelievable to play a game of this quality on a phone. Now, I touched on the storytelling aspects earlier, but let's dive into those here. Now, the structure is pretty much the same for Octopath Traveler 1 and 2. You have your 8 main characters, hence the name of the game, that all interweave together as they go throughout the story. And 2, I feel like, does a much better job of this, as there are moments when 2 characters can meet up and have little conversations, and they do kind of all meet up a little bit better by the end. I like this as I felt like I only had to experience the stories for characters I really liked instead of every single one. And I will say, from 1 to 2, I feel like the characters in 2 were much better written, and each one got a little bit more interesting, and I feel like I wanted to play even more of the stories there than I did in the original game. And Octopath 0 and Champions of the Continent are more focused around the villains while the main party stays intact. And I like this approach better personally, as I feel like I'm more invested in the main cast as opposed to them being kind of fragmented and disconnected as the story goes along. Here, they're more connected from the beginning, and it feels more cohesive. Particularly in 0, it being centered around your hometown being burned down, and there are personal stakes for why you want to go back and take down the villains. And I'm amazed at how emotionally invested these little pixel characters make you feel. I think it's all down to the incredible voice performances that make you feel immersed. They're all fantastic. Every single time I'm always blown away by the performances and how drawn into the stories I feel. And honestly, there's some really dark stories in these games that you wouldn't expect. Octopath Traveler 0 and Champions of the Continent are particularly messed up. I mean, you have Herminia, and she's dealing with drugs and adult themes, to say the least. You have August, who might be one of the most vile, sickening villains I've ever seen in a game. I mean, just the way he manipulates people, the how and why he murders people is so unbelievably diabolical. I remember audibly gasping out loud multiple times and couldn't believe what I was seeing when I was playing this game, and that the writers would even go there. Seriously, I think it's worth playing the games just for August alone. And if you think you've seen some nasty villains in other games before, I feel like you haven't seen anything yet unless you dive into Octopath Traveler 0 and Champions of the Continent. Now, as I mentioned earlier, those 2 games aren't based around different party members, but the villains. You have the same core party, and it's more about how they deal with the villains rather than individual character stories. And Octopath Traveler 0 expands upon the stories from Champions of the Continent, but if you're on the go, taking the bus or the subway every day like I do, then Champions of the Continent is a fantastic way to experience those same stories. It's virtually the same game, has the same great voice acting and presentation, and plays and looks great on your phone. Not to mention, all these games have great value to them. Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 could probably take you about 60 hours or so to finish, while Champions of the Continent and Zero take around 100 hours. It's crazy. Not to mention Champions of the Continent is free, so if you just want to play it that way, that's a great way to save some money. Now, I can't talk about what makes Octopath Traveler incredible without talking about its awesome turn-based combat. Now, I love turn-based combat in JRPGs, and the Octopath Traveler series currently has my favorite system. Essentially, it takes the best aspects of various systems from other games and melds it into turn-based perfection. Now, in 1 and 2, you have a party of 4 characters, while 0 and Champions of the Continent flip it on its head with 8 party members, giving new meaning to the series name. Now, one of the key features here is the boost and break system. So enemies have hidden weaknesses and you'll need to find them, and once you find them, they are exposed. So for example, it could be a particular weapon or a spell element. And after you hit an enemy weakness a certain amount of times, it essentially breaks them and they become vulnerable and you can do more damage. And each character also accumulates orbs each turn, and you can spend an orb to take an extra action, or if you spend 4 orbs, you can do a very powered up version of one of your abilities. What's nice is you can also speed up the battles to make it go faster if you just want to grind it out a little bit. And bosses typically have more shields for you to break, making them more vulnerable and requiring more strategy. Octopath Zero and Champions of the Continent in particular do some really interesting things with that system, so be prepared to think a little bit outside the box. Now, I love these systems in 1 and 2, but I feel like Zero and Champions of the Continent flip this on its head with 8 party members. So the way this works is you have 4 characters in the front row and 4 in reserve. Now, the characters in reserve are still accumulating orbs, but they also regain SP each turn. And what's nice is you can swap your characters out on the fly mid-battle without wasting a turn, which I love when games let me do that. It just brings a whole new level of strategy. It's particularly useful if you're like fighting a boss and they're weak to a specific weapon or element. So if you need like 4 attacks in a row of a particular weapon or element, you can swap out someone that's been in the back row and then boom, you can break them and start doing big damage. And overall, it just creates a higher level of strategy. You need to be thinking more carefully who you have in reserve and need to better prepare for bosses. Now, it can feel overwhelming at times, but I just prefer this particular system overall. It just gives you more options, which is always great. Now, credit where credit's due. The 8-party system came from Champions of the Continent, and in Zero, it expands on this system, but Champions of the Continent is where it all started. And what's great about this series is it provides deep customization for each character. It lets you choose the order in which you obtain different abilities. So you'll gain job points as you defeat enemies and win battles, and then you can spend them on abilities. So normally in RPGs, you have to get abilities in a certain order, but here you can pick them in whatever order you want, and then the next ability you choose costs a little bit more. So it's kind of fun to build your character however you want. And then after you accumulate a certain number of abilities, you unlock passive abilities, so it just feels much more rewarding to continue to unlock more abilities and more passive abilities as the game goes on. I just love this level of freedom and customization, and you can totally break the game in fun ways. Now, of course, we can't forget path actions. This is a unique way you can interact with the world. Here, you can talk with characters to get info to find hidden items. You can get bargains on items, so you can buy things a little bit cheaper. You can straight up steal items. You can fight characters for items, and you can even recruit characters for Zero and Champions of the Continent. And honestly, I can't really think of any other JRPG that lets you have this much interaction with NPCs. And again, the game lets you play it your way. You could be the good guy and not steal anything, or just steal everything and save money. And recruiting is a huge part of Zero and Champions of the Continent. It's super important to talk to everyone, and it just makes it super fun. Every time you get to a new town, you're not just going there to buy new items from the store or stock up on items. You want to talk to every NPC in town because you just never know what little goodies or pieces of information you could get. And next, let's talk about that music from Yasunori Nishiki, some of my all-time favorite gaming soundtracks. They're all so melodic and memorable, especially that main theme, not to mention tons of awesome character themes, rockin' battle and boss themes. I feel like it only gets better with each new entry. And with Zero and Champions of the Continent, it's kind of a combination of 1 and 2 plus new tracks, maybe the best way to experience all the different songs from the franchise. Honestly, for my money, there isn't a better ongoing JRPG series right now than Octopath Traveler. It's innovative, gorgeous, fun, and it just captures what makes JRPG so special. That grand sense of adventure, amazing characters you want to spend time with, dastardly villains you want to take down, super fun turn-based combat, and unforgettable music. Not to mention, we just got a brand new entry with Octopath Traveler 0, and if you want to experience that game in its original form with Champions of the Continent, you can download and play it for free. And it's the perfect time with its 2-year anniversary event, Traveler's Year-End Reunion Festival. I'll leave a link in the pinned comment and description below so you can download and start playing it today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.